Hey folks, welcome back to DCS. Today join me on the Contention Cold War server flying the venerable MiG-21 because it's been a hot minute since we hopped in this thing. I do quite enjoy flying this thing, but I have to sort of ease myself back into it every time. Today the main motivation for flying it is that I know that very few of you watch my War Thunder content, but there was an update to the Moza force feedback joystick software that allowed you to fine-tune certain things, and I made a lot more use of it in War Thunder because a lot of the flight models are kind of copy and pasted. But one of the issues with flying the 21 in DCS with force feedback is that it actually doesn't really give you any advance warning that you're going to stall the jet. And everyone that's got this thing will know that if you pull too hard, it just turns into a salmon that's out of the water and it just flops about, and it's very difficult to rein in. So the reason I'm flying it is basically just to see if I can twiddle the figures a little bit in the settings and see if I can get it to work. Spoiler alert, I don't manage to make it any better. We'll come to that again later on. The other thing is that we're flying in VR. We're using the Pimax Crystal Super. Now I did actually want to fly the Hornet today because Pimax are actually giving away the Hornet for free with the Pimax Super, but I just can't bring myself to I just hate the Hornet. I just really don't like the workflows. If you're used to the Viper especially, then it's so different, it's just counterintuitive and it is disgusting. It makes me want to throw up in my mouth. I'll get there. I am planning on, delving into it and getting better and flying it later, but for now I basically rage quit from that. I didn't have time to force a video on it when I wasn't feeling it, so I just hopped into something more familiar that I knew I could get a good sortie out of, so here we are. So emerging with an F4, we are on the Era 3 rotation, so we have R3Rs, the radar missiles, which is good for head-on shots, although not if you bodge it like I just did. And the Phantom gets AIM-7 E2s, which are actually quite good. Completely whiff that gunshot. The gun is really difficult to use in this thing, and I think this is the first time I've flown the 21 in force feedback, at least in a video. So, that's my excuse for being crap. The last time I flew the 21, I got into a situation very similar to this, and I actually ended up stalling my engine, so I'm trying super hard to turn around right now. I'm also trying super hard not to lose visual. I'm definitely getting better at maintaining viz and tracking people through fires using VR, but if you get into one of these salmon fish flop states, then it becomes exponentially more difficult. But I was quite happy that I managed to pick him out of the ground glitter as we rolled back over the top of that hammerhead, so I think that's quite a good indication of the clarity of the Pimax, because quite often people just sort of disappear into the foliage, the background, the colours all blend together, all that kind of thing, even in flat screen sometimes. So we dispatched that first Phantom, and then this other one shows up immediately afterwards. Now, I have recorded the cockpit footage from the replay track, which is why there's a bit of random stuttering and stuff. And there's also times where you might notice that the target is off the screen. It wasn't for me at the time, it just is in the replay track because I set the replay playback to 105 degrees field of view, but the headset's field of view is actually a lot more than that. It's about 140 maximum. There are a few niggles that make it feel like slightly less, but I think that when you lose sight of the contacts from the cockpit footage in the video, but I can still see it at the time, again, that's quite a good indicator of how good the Pimax headset is in terms of field of view. Now here we get another R3R in the head-on. I was hoping that I'd time that so that he was basically just finishing his turn head-on as the missile got there, but I mistimed it. I don't fly the 21 enough, and these missiles aren't available often enough that I get a lot of chance to practice with them, so we are all out of missiles, so we're going to ditch our pylons just to get rid of the drag. And here we are clean. We're down to probably about half a fuel right now, and this Phantom is carrying I think 2 Sidewinders and 2 Sparrows are still at this point, and this really goes to show how dominant the Phantom is in terms of like thrust away and rate performance. Because I'm having to really pull a lot of counter 2-circle tactics out of the back to just stay with this guy. I'm maintaining Viz, but right now he's pulling away, so I'm staying in lag. I'm diving really hard. I'm trying to push my speed up as high as possible. Once you get to like 900 km per hour or so in the MiG-21, it really starts to go ballistic. It just gets faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. But it's really difficult to actually get there at all if you're turning. So what I'm doing is, as I'm climbing, I'm turning, and then I'm diving whilst unloading the jet. So right now I'm not pulling as hard, I'm diving really hard. So this is my speed recuperation part of the turn, and you'll see that I'm letting him pull ahead. I'm letting him win the rate. I'm intentionally letting my pursuit go into lag, because that means I'm pulling less hard, my energy builds up a lot faster. He's kind of trying to counter my counter 2-circle stuff. So counter 2-circle tactic, basically, if you just turn with them horizontally, if they're in a better turn fight or a better rate fight, then you will just lose. But if you like climb as you turn and then dive as you turn, it means that your circle can be more like an oval, at least across the ground, and you're making more use of your 1-circle performance in order to cover a 2-circle rate. But the counter to that is to just copy it. So when I'm going up and when I'm going down, he's basically doing the opposite, and it means that he keeps ahead of me. So this Phantom pilot's actually quite good. It's quite rare that you get a good fight like this on, or in DCS in general, to be honest. The standard of dogfight pilot is actually quite low in this game. You might not expect that, but it's it's very true, at least in my experience. So through all this, I realised that there's actually an F5 coming in, and he's currently 3 kilometers away, which is really not good. But currently, it says he's coming from the west, which is the direction that we're currently going. My fuel is very low, and without missiles, I'm just not going to be able to take 2 of them at the same time. So as we continue from this west-hand turn towards the north, my base is to the northwest. So we're going to basically just peel off at this point, because we finally got above that 900 kilometer wall, and we're just rapidly accelerating right now. We're pushing about 1100 kilometers per hour. We're breaking Mach, as you can tell from the audio, and we managed to just outrun both of them, and we get back to Woodger. So we're going to go in for a landing. My fuel is very low, like 100 kilos, so I'm gliding it in. If you watched my Falcon video from the other day, then I actually really enjoy doing that like Millennium Falcon in Force Awakens thing to turn around. So the MiG-21 is mega draggy. Once it's got its gear down and its flaps down, it just slows down stupidly quickly. So I'm actually pulling up a lot as we bleed our speed off in order to drop the flaps, drop the gear, and then I'm going to dive very steeply to the runway, using the flaps, using the gear, and the drag that they generate to stop me from getting too fast. We're holding about 320 kilometers per hour. We want to be doing like maybe 350 to 400 to land, but the runway at Woodger is like one of the shortest runways in the game. So I do slightly misjudge this, but it was about 320 kilometers per hour when we touched down. It looked harder on the outside footage than it felt on the inside. That's my excuse. Anyway, so we're down, we taxi back to the other end of the runway in case anyone else wants to use it, and we start our re-arm. Now if you look in the top right corner of the EWR reports, the next one that pops is going to say that there's an A10 perilously close, and I cut the footage earlier, but I was hunting this guy down for a while and he kept evading me in the mountains because he'd just go off the EWR reports before I could find him. And I think he knows that it's me at the base, and you do tend to get reports for people that are just sort of sitting idle. So he will know that I'm there. So I'm here waiting for my fuel and my weapons to rearm and I'm basically shitting myself. It's not looking good. He gets extremely close, and I actually think to myself, I'm going to have to just go. Because he could maverick me, he could gun me even. I didn't actually know at the time that Woodger had air defences, because normally it doesn't, or at least in my experience, like the way that the look pans out for me. So we start to go. At this time I don't really notice where he actually is, but I do see these SAM launches. And then right as we start to punch the burner in, I notice that the SAM's got him. So we call off and we can poodle back to our little taxi spot. And we finish our rearm.
Rearming complete.
That was a pretty close call. It's moments like that that, you know, like when you're watching a video, you really don't get the tension from it, but it was unreal how I was like sweating at the thought that A10 was going to come and fuck me up on the ground. It's moments like that that make DCS, but it's moments like that that just really don't translate well into entertainment videos. At least not with my editing skill. Your mileage may vary, but feel free to flatter me in the comments. Anyway, so Woodger's runway very, very short. Not familiar with flying this thing in forced feedback, so I actually kind of bodged the takeoff. Thankfully it doesn't pop the tires or do any damage. So we're up, gears are up. I'm just going to punch and burn at this 20km distance. There's quite a gaggle of things. There's 2 Phantoms, there's an F5, I think there's a Mirage F1 and another MiG-21 around as well. We fly right into the middle of it, we ditch our fuel tank on the way in, and we just latch onto the first thing we see, which in this case was this Phantom. So that Phantom has got 2 fuel tanks still on his wings, and he shouldn't be dogfighting in this day, especially not in terrain like this. Probably would have just crashed if we'd left him to it, to be honest. You can see that lack of warning for the stall there kind of got me. It's happening again, look. It just waggles around violently. And it isn't really shown in the force feedback very well. Like, combating it is quite difficult as well. I can't really explain it without you trying it, but I'll keep trying to tweak the profile, and if anyone's interested I'll share it on my Discord server if anyone else has got a Moza. But it'll probably take me another couple sorties before we wrap our heads around it. So this Phantom's really, really slow. I'm trying to stay behind him, but I'm not familiar with the 21 particularly, or not lately, it's been a while, so I'm also sort of stuck in a really low speed state. Thankfully I'm offensive on him, so I'm not worried too much, but I didn't play my cards very well here. I should have really avoided pulling super hard and held my speed a lot better. I think it was a friendly F1 that just died, so we get an R13 M1 off on that Phantom, which does connect thankfully. And then we're going to peel away and look for the other Phantom, who's apparently 2 kilometers away, hot on me. But I don't think he knew that I was there because he starts to peel away. Thanks to Boomcat, by the way, one of my Discord members, for telling me about this camera angle. If you use the F5 camera, and then it's asterisk and / on the numpad to like hyper zoom in. Made quite a bit of use of that in this video. So that Phantom was unaware. Maybe he was low on fuel and he just bugged out, but we chased him down and we took him out. And then there was a pop-up for a B-52, and I've only got radar missiles left. So my intent was to basically blast up and intercept this B-52. But then there's a Phantom pop-up at 16 kilometers, and 16 kilometers is really not far at all. We do still have another friendly F1 backing us up. I tried to lock him in the head-on, but the ground clear kind of prevents it, and then I don't see him. So I go to like turn in and get like into the notch, but for whatever reason his Sparrow just does not care. I honestly don't know how that worked. It pulled way harder than I would have expected. I I think he must have fired in boresight mode, because he would have been really hard pressed to get a lock at that kind of aspect. Unless he did it before I went into the dive, but his first sparrow didn't track. Many questions about what happened there. But anyway folks, thanks a lot for watching. Check out the Parmax in the links below. The Moza, if you want one, though I'm not an affiliate, tell them that I sent you them. New outro. Thought I'd chuck some B-roll footage in as well instead of just still images. Hope you all have a good Christmas and New Year folks, and I'll see you in January 2026, maybe with a review of the 2026 and beyond video like last year. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.